When I was about 6 or 7 years old, my older sister and I rode our bikes to our neighbor's house, Alan, who was a couple of years younger than she was and a couple of years older than I was. And I always looked up to Alan, and I always wanted to do the things that he did. And one of the things that was always impressive with him was that he would try different crazy things because he was at the time more athletic than me. And one of the things that he used to love to do was he had a garage where the door would go up, and he would jump on to the part of the door that would lift him. And as he got to the top of the door, rising, before his hands went underneath the garage, he would jump off and land on the ground. And my older sister did it, and it seemed really cool, and it seemed simple enough. So I tried it. And when I tried it, I remember going up and up and up and realizing that I was going much higher than I ever expected to be off the ground. And I got scared, and I got so scared that I held on, and thankfully, was still wearing my bike helmet that got stuck in between the frame of the garage door and the bridge of my nose. Alan, when he saw me stuck in between the door and the frame, quickly lowered the garage, and I was able to come down, and I had this big cut on the surface of my nose, and it was bruised pretty badly. And I was just very thankful that I was able to be finally back on the ground. And I forget what I told my mom. I think we told her that I fell off the bike or something like that. But we didn't think anything of it until years and years later, when we actually told my mom the truth. And we found out, I believe it was like when I was 11 or 12 years old, that I had a deviated septum due to some x-rays that I had. And that was the result of a broken nose. And it turned out that that day in the garage broke my nose. And we never really knew that that was the case. So looking back on it, I'm very fortunate that things didn't go in a different direction. But there's a few things that I learned coming out of that experience, and not only physically but also mentally, that I believe can apply to the way that I approach things when it comes to trying new things and failing and moving forward as a result. So the first thing that comes to mind is that when I got on the garage door, I didn't realize what I was in for. I realized that I was in too deep, and I was afraid to let go. And to me, it was more comfortable for me to stay on the door instead of jumping off. But that safety was only perceived because I ended up getting my head smashed and my nose broken as a result. So obviously, physically and mentally, to me, that's an example of the mistakes that we often make from holding on to something, to some form of comfort, or to something that we're more familiar with, due to the perceived safety. Whereas in reality, it could be much dangerous to hold on instead of letting go. Also, something that when I think about it, I think about the recovery time. At the time, I didn't know that I had a broken nose, and I'm sure being 6 or 7 years old, I had much other things to worry about than a bruised nose, and I was physically able to heal faster. But thinking of pain, as we get older and as we get more aware of what happened, I've realized, and looking back on this situation, I've realized that there's a difference between the pain and then the suffering. The pain is something that's non-negotiable. It's not as if you could be hurting and talk yourself out of the pain being in existence. However, the suffering is the result of the story that you're telling yourself about the pain. And in this situation, during my recovery, I didn't even realize I was recovering from anything. I didn't realize that I had a broken nose. And if anything, I was grateful for being less damaged than the other potential outcomes could have been. So for me, this realization of thinking back of what you did wrong or making a mistake, and making the mistake of holding too long, usually mentally, emotionally, and physically, it comes with a toll, and that toll is suffering. And it's something that can persist much longer than the physical pain itself, because pain is finite. However, suffering has much more longevity to it if we allow it to continue to fester inside of us. And then finally, thinking of this failed attempt at riding the garage door, it was something that I was nervous about, I was scared with, but I wanted to try it, and I wanted to try something new. And as a kid, everything's new to you, and we're always probing and poking and feeling around the world and in our environment, and we're constantly getting feedback of, it's okay to do this, it's not okay to do that. If you do this, you get hurt. If you do that, you won't get hurt. And all of that feedback gives us the guardrails of what we're able to do and what we're not able to do. And it keeps us in check, and it enables us to learn our capabilities and where the terrain, both metaphorically and literally, where the terrain is that we're operating in. And I'm glad to say that after this situation, trying new sports, trying different art forms, whether it be acting in plays throughout school, or trying to start in a new industry with no experience, or trying to start a new role that never existed before, or trying to start stand-up comedy where everyone tells you that they don't see you as a comedian. For me, that's going into uncharted land, and it's been a great fortunate aspect that I've been able to persist, and I've been able to realize what is the difference between temporary defeat and complete failure, and being able to persist as a result. So if I could change things that day riding up the garage door, would I do it? No. Would I encourage any other 6 or 7-year-old to do it? Absolutely not. But the reason why I wouldn't change it is because I've learned from it. And you will never see me ride on an opening garage door again. And that's because true learning is it's about realizing that you made a mistake, realizing that you went in too deep, and realizing that you were fortunate enough to come out on the other side alive. But ignorance and insanity is making those mistakes and repeating them, expecting a different result. But with this lesson, the lesson learned here is that you might get in too far over your head, and your head might get stuck in a place that it shouldn't be. And it's not a guarantee that it would ever come out. And that luck isn't always on your side. And to me, that's something that has been a lesson for me, not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally and spiritually as well. So with that, be on the lookout for those opening garage doors. Be on the lookout for holding on for too long. And be on the lookout for repeating the same stupid mistakes that might get you caught. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great week.